Welcome to Vintage Firearms with LT Arms. In this episode, we feature early 20th century American firearms innovator and inventor, Charles Newton.
An attorney by vocation, a gun crank inventor by avocation, Charles Newton was far ahead of his time in ballistic pursuits and rifle design. Today, over a century later, many of his radical innovations are considered standards. If you're shooting a bolt-action rifle with a high-velocity cartridge, you can thank Charles Newton. Newton was born in 1870 in western New York State into a farming family. Clearly blessed with above-average intelligence, by age 17 he was not attending high school, he was teaching it. He began law school in 1895 and was admitted to the New York bar in 1896. Law school in a year? Yes, indeed. Chaz, as he preferred to be called, was a quick study and a brilliant mind. Though it's not precisely known how Newton was inspired to then become a gun manufacturer by 1915, we may presume it was his 6 years in the New York National Guard that exposed him to rifles and sparked his profound firearms creativity. At the outset, Newton must be recognized as the father of high velocity. There's no other way to say it. His cartridge designs were completely outlandish for their time, yet all 10 of Newton's known cartridge designs exist today as factory offerings, ballistically duplicated by the major ammunition loading companies. One of them was what Savage called the Imp, known today as the .22 Savage High Power. It is the .25-35 Winchester necked down to .22, and it appeared in the 1911 Savage catalog, chambered in the Model 99. It is known as the 5.6x52R in Europe today. Seeking more velocity, Newton turned his attention to the 6mm Lee Navy case, necking it to .22 as well. That's the 220 Swift. Adding case capacity again, he necked the 7x57 Mauser to .22 caliber, which today is known as the 5.6x57 RWS. All this work with making bullets of 224 and 228 diameter fly at previously unimaginable speeds was heady stuff for the 1910s, but Newton quickly recognized its folly. In the June 1913 issue of Outdoor Life magazine, he wrote, "Doubtless, the .22 high power has by this time demonstrated its inability to invariably and promptly kill not only moose, but walrus and polar bears as well, while another season will witness like disappointment in the line of rhinoceros and Cape buffalo. It is neither poisonous or supernatural, nor is it a Martian ray gun." Knowing full well hunters would continue shooting his fast .22s at game of every type and size, even though they were designed for woodchuck hunting, Newton went back to the drawing board. His next design became known as the .250-3000 Savage, so named from diameter and speed. This 87-grain .25 caliber bullet traveling 3,000 feet per second was chambered by Savage in the Model 99 in 1912. Later, gunsmith Jerry Gebbe necked the case to .22 and created his .22 Varminter, the cartridge we know today as the .22-250. There were numerous other cartridges designed by Newton during the period 1909 to 1912. Two of these were the .25 Newton Special and the 7mm Special or .280 Newton. We know these cartridges today as the .25-06 Remington and .280 Remington. There was a .30 Newton, which developed 300 Winchester Magnum numbers decades before the Win Mag was even dreamed of. There was a .35 Newton, a near-ballistic copy of what we know today as the .358 Norma Magnum. One of his most favored was the .256 Newton, a dazzling quarter-bore that drew accolades from noted shooters such as Captain E.C. Crossman, Townsend Whalen, and Elmer Keith. It was Crossman, in fact, who had outlined his thoughts on the ideal hunting cartridge in the April 1914 Outers book. The .256 Newton appeared shortly thereafter, in almost the exact form Crossman described. Elmer Keith notably owned a .256 Newton rifle, serial number 129. It has yet to surface in collectors' circles. There was a .45 Newton, developing smashing power equal to the .458 Winchester Magnum. And all of this in the 19-teens and inside of 25 years since the advent of smokeless powder. Oh, and while we're on the subject of powder, yeah, Newton has a patent for that too, one of the earliest examples of exploring progressive burn rates and how the shapes of powder kernels affect it. Newton was also awarded patents for his bullet designs. He created a wire-tipped bullet to protect the Spitzer points and also came up with a partition design that we still use today. Although Newton's earliest cartridge designs were first chambered in lever-action rifles, he knew the bolt action would be necessary to safely contain the pressures his cartridges developed. He'd even written articles extolling the virtues of lever over bolt, but he accepted the fact that the lever could never safely accommodate the pressures or lengths of his cartridges. To that end, Newton designed and built a bolt rifle with features that were thoroughly innovative for the era, features that were light years ahead of their time and commonplace today. The most prominent feature is the interrupted thread locking lugs at the front of the bolt. This gives the bolt 7 locking surfaces, providing greater strength than any Mauser or Springfield. Weatherby's 9 locking lug configuration was no doubt inspired by the Newton. Additionally, the Newton also features 2 rear locking bolts providing reserve locking power if the forward lugs gave way. These 2 lugs were in line with the front lugs, eliminating the elevated receiver bridge and making for a much sleeker receiver profile. A second outstanding feature of the Newton is the 3-position wing safety. Many shooters believe this type of safety was invented by Mauser or Winchester, when in fact it first appeared on the Newton in 1916. The rifle also featured a 1-piece firing pin. This enhanced lock time and was easier to maintain. At the time, no other American bolt rifle offered this feature. Newton's rifle featured set triggers. The rear trigger set the front trigger, which could be set as low as 2 pounds. The adjustment screw was easily accessed between the triggers. Newton's genius is highlighted in his hinged floor plate. He was the first to invent and incorporate the design that is so common to us today in rifles such as the Winchester Model 70, the Remington Model 700, and the Ruger Model 77. In his own rifle, Newton went a step further. The floor plate has a dual function as a wrench to loosen the barreled action from the stock. Once the floor plate is dropped down, it can be rotated until it releases the front action screw. The barrel may then be lifted out of the stock, leaving the rifle neatly separated into 2 pieces for storage or travel. Reassembly was just the reverse. To overcome the problem of loose fit between stock and receiver so common in takedown rifles, Newton designed the forward action screw to be turned into the action. Moving the screw deeper effectively changed the pitch of the exposed thread. The floor plate could then be tightened against this, and any slack due to wear would be taken up. The rear tang was split and also held a screw that could be turned into the stock to take up any rear slack and perfectly maintained accuracy each time the rifle was reassembled. Newton wisely enlisted the services of famed barrel maker Harry Pope to supervise manufacture of his barrels. Pope also designed the machinery to make the barrels, which featured segmental rifling. Segmental rifling provides less resistance to the bullet as it travels down the bore, allowing for higher velocities. Accuracy is also improved due to less strain on the bullet jacket. Additionally, the bores are very easy to clean, being nearly as smooth as an average shotgun bore. Segmental rifling is best described as an oval pathway cut along the bore. It is made in the same way as traditional rifling, but instead of cutting grooves and lands, an oval is cut the size of the final bore diameter and spiraled forward the length of the barrel. When a bullet is fired down the barrel, it is slightly flattened rather than cut by the grooves of traditional rifling. The oval spiral imparts the spin. Segmental rifling proved to be very effective and accurate, but never one to rest. Newton also developed a parabolic rifling that enhanced the rifling to create more positive grip on the bullet. This is also known as ratchet rifling, and several barrel makers today offer this design. Long before the cuts compensator, Newton was experimenting with the effects of recoil reduction by putting holes in rifle muzzles and venting barrels. How common are muzzle brakes today? Thanks, Chaz. He came up with the plunger-type ejector so common on today's commercial rifles. His was enhanced by the fact that it protruded past the bolt face only when the bolt was drawn back to its most rearward position. With all of this innovation and superior design, why don't we have Newton rifles today? One would expect them to be as prevalent as Remington and Winchester. Sadly, it was not to be. Newton should have remained a designer and not a manufacturer. He partnered with financial backers who became insolvent. He hired production supervisors incapable of creating consistency. His timing proved terrible as America was drawn into World War I. All of these factors contributed to Newton going out of business not once, but twice, the whole of his venture lasting just shy of 10 years. Estimates vary, but it's generally accepted that the final production of Newton Rifle Company and its various iterations was somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000 rifles. Even with failure after failure, Newton's mind never stopped. Unquestionably, his most radical design came in 1929. It had pained him to have to adopt the bolt action for all his developments, as he remained a staunch supporter of the lever action. He always felt that there were 2 unnecessary motions required in reloading the bolt action. He liked the efficiency of the straight pull action that required just 2 motions. Taking all the attributes he preferred, he created what he designated the Newton lever bolt and realized his dream of an action with the speed of a lever and the stability of a bolt. Newton made 1 prototype lever bolt rifle. The design was ingenious enough to attract the Marlin Firearms Company to a degree to manufacture the rifle if he could secure 500 pre-orders. Newton produced promotional brochures and began work to secure the orders. He was foiled by bad timing again when the stock market crash of 1929 heralded the Great Depression. Chaz Newton passed away in 1932 of a heart attack, aged 64. Philip B. Sharp, in his seminal 1938 work The Rifle in America, wrote that he figured Newton died a discouraged man. Though this point could be argued, it is undeniable that he was one of the greatest minds in 20th century firearms design.